Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the pleasure of catching up with my friend Nelson Valderrama, founder of Intuilize. His firm specializes in helping distributors use analytics and artificial intelligence to optimize pricing, purchasing, and inventory management. AI can be very scary for those not familiar with the practical use and limitations of this technology. As much as Hollywood and the sensational media would like you to believe, AI is not here to steal your job. There will still be plenty of need for humans to execute the recommendations brought forth by these tools. As you listen to our conversation, you can see how his work trying to manage millions of consumer credit customers led him to realize that data analytics was the only way to handle these relationships. He has taken these concepts and built optimization tools for the B2B distribution arena. I hope you enjoy our conversation. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSQL Distribution Software. InSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution, and these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. Economy doesn't mean compromise. This company is on the cutting edge of distribution-friendly applications like VMI on mobile devices, mobile signature capture, mobile CRM, warehouse management software, and e-commerce development. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSQL Distribution Software at www.insql.com. That's INXSQL.com. Well, hey, Nelson, welcome to Distribution Talk. Always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, same way, Jason. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, as you know, when we get together, I like to talk about people's backgrounds. I think that's really the purpose of the podcast was, to talk about, how people came into their distribution journey. So would you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, definitely. So after I graduated from engineering, I was hired by GE in Mexico, and I was able to join one of their management programs. In this case, that was for GE Supply. So I was, I started there working a couple of months in Mexico, and then I moved into the US to, learn about distribution. And I have the opportunity to have rotations as inside sales and outside sales, warehouse, all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
For year and a half. And then after my training finalized, they sent me back to Mexico to fix one of the branches that we have there in Guadalajara, which is a very nice city. And I have my first opportunity to downsize a business, which is nothing fun.
No, there's nothing fun about downsizing a business. It's such a nice way to say you had to fire a bunch of people.
Definitely, yeah. But that was heartbreaking, man. Just talking with people that I knew and taking the inventory in different locations and talking with the owners of the location. It was not really fun. But, I learned a lot from that. Then I moved to Monterrey, which was a new branch that we started over there. And that was kind of my first profit and loss opportunity that I had, where you need to work with the long and the short term, making sure that you beat your expectations. And as you know, GE back in those days were really rough about that. It's plus minus 5% that you have to hit your, net income. If not, you start having a lot of questions coming your way. So yeah, it was quite interesting. That was kind of, I started in distribution, Jason. So I was able to rotate from different, I would say, geographies as well, trying to help out GE Supply in Chile, that we have a couple of projects. And I was exposed to construction and OEM, MRO, different verticals as well. So that was really good. So
Nelson, just kind of getting to think about, really the business in Latin America and all of the different places that you've, primarily Mexico, but where you've worked for GE Supply. How does that differ from maybe GE Supply in the United States or supply houses that you currently work with? What do you see as the main differences?
I would say, I think back in the days, now it's completely different. But back in the days, I think the three main differences were, first of all, the customer acquisition. Latin America is big about relationships.
Yeah.
So in order to really get a new customer and trying to serve them, they need to trust you. And that means, not just having lunches and playing golf, but, really not, because they have other relationship that they have been nurturing for a while. So for them, switch vendor, that's a big thing. So relationship matters, I think, everywhere, but especially in Latin America and Asian countries, that's a big thing. The second thing is about the business itself. What I'm saying, buying and selling, it's just different where you find different brands. And I remember dealing with, for example, for pipe and cable. As a G Supply, we have a huge leverage and purchasing power in the US with the big guys. But in Mexico, we were nobody.
Right.
And that was kind of mind blowing for the CEOs. Like, how happened that this and this brand, we are buying millions of dollars in the US, but in Mexico, we don't have any leverage. That's kind of unthinkable, especially how close US with is Mexico. So that part also is different. And the third one is about inflation. I think everyone especially in the electrical distribution side, everyone is subject to the price changes in copper for cable.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember back then when we're doing imports from the US and from other countries, plus our exchange rate and the peso that we were using, you always have to start thinking about inflation. So those were the three things. We have to, of course, prepare all the P&L based on dollars, but also you have to report like those variances, right? On exchange rate and inflation. For some of the CFO was like, what are you talking about? What is that, right? Because they were not exposed to that kind of fluctuations in the US.
Right. Interesting. No, I was just curious more about what your take was. I just recently had a guest on who I was mentioning to you, Gitze.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about some of the differences in the HVAC side, of distribution. And I was just curious what your take was now on more the electrical and industrial side.
What was his main thing? So let's compare what I just mentioned to you, what he said.
Boy, similar challenge. Definitely, we talked a lot about relationships. That was actually kind of one of the interesting things. And frankly, one of the things he's trying to bring into his membership there is the idea of potential inside sales. Mm-hmm. That he feels like inside sales could actually be a very big component there, but you have to get over that cultural barrier of wanting to see face to face.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of one of the interesting things he talked about. And I think if I recall correctly, it was a lot, there was processes that were different between the two of them.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the gist of his differences.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, again, there are certain things that have changed in 20 years, and there are things that are still the same, right? I think relationships, at the end of the day, we are humans and we gravitate to that, right? Knowing someone and having that relationship for sure.
For sure. Sorry for the segue. Let's jump back into your journey. Tell me, so you spent time at the supply. How did you?
So I was working there till 2000, and then G was great about giving you opportunities to have rotation in other businesses. So I was handpicked by the CEO of Latin America of G Capital Consumer Finance. So they have all these yearly reviews about, the talent. So they found me and they say, well, Nelson, would you be willing to explore your career in G Capital? And I know about lights and bulbs and cable. I have no idea about credit cards and personal loans and but I would give it a shot. So it was, I would say I was a step learning curve the first 2 years to learn about, the products and the dynamics. But that's what I learned about analytics, because the big difference between distribution and I would say banking is that distribution, you may have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 customers, and somehow you can manage to keep up with some of the names of the companies, name of the people you're dealing with. In consumer finance, that's impossible. You have a portfolio of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million customers. There's no way that you can meet them. You don't even know them, right? They're coming from different channels. So that's where really analytics make a lot of the work for me and for my team, understanding how to sell to them, how to acquire customers, how to make sure that they were happy, how to make sure they were spending the money with us, making sure that they were paying. So that was really interesting for me to see the big difference between distribution and money. For me, it's the same. I was explaining to the banking guys, like, for me, this is distribution. We are talking about, we're distributing money. That's all, right? It's just the same thing. You are
right.
Exactly. It's different product.
It's a different product. It's just a different product.
It's just kind of the dynamic is the same. You go and get some deposits or loans, and you put it in your shelves, and then you need to produce all the different products, and then you have to sell to someone else. Right? It's the same thing, just different dynamics. So I learned a lot about that. And then 2008 came. Everyone knew what happened there. So change things for everyone.
Sure.
And then I decided to start, looking into opportunities to do something else. And a friend of mine that I work with him, he and his dad, they have a private equity firm in LA. So they invited me to join them to buy small businesses and turn it around and, doing the whole bolt-on thing. So I moved to LA in 2010. And that's what we did. There was a small business there. We grew from 10 million to 20 million. Then we bought another business in Texas, help them out to, streamline their assets, their inventory, and helping out a little bit on the pricing side. And then, we bought another business, and by then there was 2017, and we sold that platform to a bigger private equity firm. And at that point, I just decided, you know what? I like distribution. I like to work with private equity firms, but I want to start my own gig.
Sure. So were the companies that you were acquiring during your stint with the private equity firm, were they primarily distribution companies?
Yeah, distribution companies. Just distribution companies, different sizes.
Yeah.
Serving primarily the aerospace industry, but in different part of the supply chain, different products. So that was, I think like buying those companies was very interesting. Doing the due diligence was even more interesting. You have the opportunity to talk with so many different owners and the perspective that they have of their businesses and how they evaluate their businesses. And, I was the bad cop, I would say, because they would provide data and I was the guy coming after them and asking tough questions about inventory and pricing and costs. And with data, it's just different, right? When you go to an owner and say, you know what, your inventory sucks, right? 20-30% is not moving because of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of them feel like there's more value there than there really is. And I try to tell them, it's like, guys, nobody is going to love your inventory as much as you do. Yeah. So it's always trying to get it to that point where it is saleable.
Yes.
I'm just a huge believer that all businesses should be in a position to be sold, even if they don't want to sell their companies. But to run that efficient operation is, hey, think like, how is that buyer going to view, in this case, my inventory? Or how is this buyer going to view my operation? And that's kind of that ideal standard. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And the thing what really opened my eyes was having conversation after we bought these businesses and talking with some of the owners. And I present to them some of the findings of the opportunity where we can make more money. Some of them said to me like, Nelson, I knew this was something that we could do, but I never knew how to find information or was too risky for us, right?
Yeah.
Or we didn't have the talent or we didn't have this or that. But I think all of them, they knew as well that there was a better way to really enhance their business, to make more money and to make it more sustainable in the long term. Does it make sense? Like,
Absolutely.
They have that like instinct, right? And that's what we call the company Intuilize, because what I found about from all the owners is that they have a really good instinct. I would say the instinct, I'm saying all the time is right, but typically is quite fine-tuned in trying to find the opportunities for the company. But that was kind of a aha moment for me. One of the owners said to me, Nelson, why you don't do this for other companies?
Well, I don't know. Thank you for the idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, definitely I can do. So that was pretty much. So we founded Intuilize back in 2018. Of course, I have a bunch of ideas about how to do things and doing a lot of research and development. And We started, having our first customer in 2019, and here we are in 2022.
That's fantastic. I think it is interesting, though, coming out of that. You're in that arm's length situation from that private equity side. You are insulated a little bit, from these companies that you're acquiring and analyzing, and it is less personal. But then you get to see these human beings and how they accept your message and how they see themselves. I think it could be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and see the transformation, right? That's what I said to everyone. I think my branding as a professional out there working for GE or for any other or these companies is transformation, right? So I would say the before and after working with Nelson is that I help out organizations to be transformed, right? Going from a current state to a future state that is better.
Yeah.
That they were the way we were. And that was, that's what I really is my passion. That's what really motivates me to work and, to help distributors is that I can see them transforming their communities, transforming the company they're working on and so forth. And I want to be part of that.
Nelson, it just kind of dawned on me in thinking about some of the companies that you were looking at to acquire when you were in that area.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not the really bad companies that you all would make an offer on. They would have to have at least a modicum of financial wherewithal and some organization, or else it just was going to be too much of an uphill push if you were to buy them. Is that a fair statement?
I will say so. Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest challenge, Jason, to be honest with you, is that, and I think you mentioned this a couple of minutes ago, a lot of them were not prepared for this.
Yeah.
A lot of companies were in that situation because they didn't plan for a transition. They didn't have someone to continue the business. And something that I found over and over is that, especially the family business, they didn't have professionals in place, right? They have a lot of family members.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Nothing wrong with that. But again, when you see that and you're like, man, you can run this business and you can hire a good GM, a good ops guy, a good purchasing guy, that it will cost you kind of the same amount of money that you're paying your family member, and they will get a much better company. And it will be something that will be more beneficial for everyone. It's hard. And I know I have my company, and I don't have family members, but I deal with a lot of companies. I know it's hard because when you have your cousin, your aunt, and how you are about to fire them. What I found is as well that the guys that we bought companies and they were the most successful, I would say, investment that we had were where the owner was a forward thinker, someone that was one step ahead of the game. And because you see, a distributor has to do a lot of perfect things. They need to know how to buy great, price great.
Yes.
Fantastic on relationships. Awesome in, accessing talent, understand the competition and find. I mean, there is a lot of things that you need to do quite well to be in this marketplace, especially if you wanted to be in the 20, 30, 40 years length. So again, It takes a lot of things for an entrepreneur or an owner to make it happen. And I think that's what I found. People that were forward thinkers. That's the ones that really win or want, the best deals, I would say.
Going back to, the kind of that first time, really, it sounds to me like that finance world that you got involved with, the GE, was kind of that eye-opening moment when you realized I can't manage all of these millions now of customer relationships between my two ears. Now I have to use some sort of software or just different tools. It sounds to me like this is what's led you to really the AI tools that you use today.
Definitely. I mean, just to give you an idea, when we're talking about, for example, managing pricing, right, and distribution, what we found is that, even at 40 million, I will give you an example of a guy that we just signed. So they are a $200 million business annual revenue. And pricing combinations that need to be optimized were around 500 million combinations. So I was talking with this prospect and I said, do you imagine you or anyone in your team crunching 500 million combinations of price points of customers' products to find out what is the best price that you can give to a customer? if you are a Rain Man and you love to do this, go for it.
Yeah, give it your best shot, but I don't think it's possible.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what you find in the finance world. When you go and you say, you know what, I manage, a portfolio of 3 million customers in Mexico, right? We have branches and so forth. There is no way that you can manage that without analytics because the amount of complexity because of the combinations that you have is just exponential. There is no way that you can do it as a human. So you need to have tools, and you can use many different tools in order to make that happen. I think that happened with distribution. When I talked with an owner and they described to me the problem and I asked them, what do you try? And they told me about process or people of consultants. And one of the things that really amazed me is that there are few times that they talk about any technology tool that they use to solve their problem. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And that's the thing. I mean, I don't know, is that our generation or, the older generation, the first thing that we don't think about solving something is technology. But if you talk with a millennial, that's the first thing, right?
Sure. No, we want to throw bodies at
it. Exactly.
Unfortunately, we don't. Well, right now we don't have the bodies, but still, it's a very inefficient way to solve a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or time, right? I mean, I remember working long hours, right? 10, 12 hours.
Right.
So if you don't have the bodies, you were working on Saturdays and so forth, right? And I remember even simple things as a physical inventory, right? Something so mundane as a there. And there's some technology you can use now, far in between. You don't need to do a physical inventory. I don't know how many people are doing physical inventories right now. I hope nobody's doing because there are.
Unfortunately, Nelson, still, there's a ton of them. Ton of them. I've been teaching now for 19 years, and it used to be, I would say, probably 85% of the people would do it. I would still say 50 or 40 to 50% of the distributors I physically work with and I see in an audience are still doing annual physicals. It just drives me crazy.
Oh, okay. So again, that here we go. Something that has been ingrained in our brains, just keeping rolling. And I think the change is going to happen with the new generation. And I have been saying this for 3 years, which is, it's not about technology. It's not about us. It's not about, anything. It's about the new generation. Those guys are wired different. I mean, I have 3 teenagers at home. And believe me, the big difference between the way they see the world and I see the world in certain aspects is completely different, right?
Sure.
And they're the guys that will be driving the change. I mean, I'm pretty sure people that are 20 or 30s right now, they don't want to do physical inventories for the rest of their lives.
No.
So the next time that they are promoted to an ops person, they will say, we can do some cycle counts, don't we?
Right. We can try something a little different. And you know what? We've got barcodes now that actually can do this. I don't have to count this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. We can start doing some changes. It won't be overnight, but I would say over time, they will be able to find that out. But yeah, so I agree with you. I think working on the consumer finance business really opened my eyes onto that.
Yeah.
Using data and, more important to see results. Because again, there is no way that you can just use data and just keep playing, but you want to see results. You want to see your P&L bit impact by the action that you are taking. So I was able to see that as well, which is important.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that, and maybe if we look at, again, our generation, maybe even someone a little older than us, I have a feeling that it's fear-based, that's why they don't look at these amazing tools that are out there. Is they're afraid, like AI is, artificial intelligence. That is scary to some people.
Yeah.
I think Hollywood did it to us, but
big time.
It is. It's scary. And I don't understand, I guess, why it is people are afraid to take on that, at least take a good hard look at it.
Well, I mean, the analogy that I use, and I put this in an article, was fax machines, right? Remember fax machine? I remember my first job in GE in 19 whatever. I don't recall, 1997 or 96, whatever. We were having the first couple of fax machines. They're working. And I remember going to some of our customer sites. They were sending us, POs by hand and POs by mail.
Yes.
And a lot of POs over the phone, right? And there was no fax. Why?
Right.
Using that. And I'm about to say something to Jason, and I think the audience hopefully won't get offended, right? But when you are in Latin America, which is third world country, doesn't matter, Mexico, Chile, whatever, Brazil, the conception that we have about the US is you're in the high end. I mean, I will go to the US and I will see, people flying and
Flying cars and
flying cars. The best of
Sure.
the best, right?
Sure.
That
Sure.
was our perception, especially studying engineering. 90% of the books are coming from the US, 70% of them are
Sure.
written in English. So you see all this stuff. So when I moved from Mexico to the US for my first rotation in GE Supply, that was Martinez in California, close to San Francisco. And I was talking with some of the customers there, and I found out that they were hesitant to start or keeping using faxes. And I'm talking in 1998. I was fascinated by that. But let me give you just a contrast. When I came back in 2010 and we bought this business in LA, and I was looking into how we were receiving orders. I mean, maybe I'm growing on this one, but I think 40 or 50% of the POs that we received back in 2010 were through fax.
Oh, sure. I would absolutely believe that. Yeah.
Well, and now let me give you another benchmark. Today, my customers, when we're looking at the data, I look into the channels, they tell me, Nelson, yeah, we keep receiving these POs from public companies. I won't mention names, and they keep sending faxes.
Yes, I know.
So that will give you an answer, right? On 1998 or 97, people hesitant to use faxes. And now people in 2022 completely ingrained on just using faxes and not using EDI or the e-commerce, right?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
So the adoption of technology in our industry, I would say, is really, really slow, I would say.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. In some of the groups that I facilitate and host, I was talking with some credit managers.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to get away from faxes and away from mailing and all of this and go as digital as humanly possible. And they were sharing with me that they are still receiving POs and acknowledgement, things like that via fax.
Yeah.
That they cannot throw out the fax because there are still customers that are reliant upon that. And I'm like, okay, guys, can we let's call it right now, 2022, no more faxes. We're done. Okay, it's over. Cut it off. I mean, let's stop now.
Yeah. So anyway, coming back to your question.
Yeah.
I think a little bit has to do with fear. A little bit of it has to do with, let's imagine you and I, we are 65 or 60. We already have been working for 40 plus years. We make our money, right? We have good savings. Do you really want to jump into a change of our ERP system or a change of our CRM or get into AI? I don't think so. Unless you wanted to do that, you don't have that appetite. I'm not saying everyone, and hopefully people don't get offended listening to this, but the appetite for that kind of, I would say, technology or new things maybe not be there because just of where you are in your life cycle, right? And I have this discussion with a lot of owners. The second thing is, I think the people that, like me, that are trying to share this with the audience, we need to be better at explaining AI, honestly. Because as you said, Hollywood and books and the news, I put the webinar that you and I put together a couple of months ago about, I remember when you go and you see the 5-6 different media in the US telling about AI is going to replace everyone. AI is going to, it wants your job. It won't be any more humans. That is not helping out.
No, that does not help the progress of technology whatsoever.
Exactly. People is afraid, right, of that stuff. And there was actually, Forbes did a survey about this with people that are in the mid-tier, I would say, management. And they asked them about AI. And they said they were open about AI, but 40% of them respond that they were afraid that their jobs were about to be replaced. So again, I think AI and technology itself, the challenge is about how we frame it to the owners in a way where they can understand how that technology is going to help their business or not, right? And if it's going to help them out, how their company would look like with that technology in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. Does it make sense?
Sure. Yeah, and I think as well as the owners, and I think, obviously that's the decision maker, that's the person who writes the check. But I think also making sure that the associates are comfortable with this technology as well. Because it's not just the owner's job that gets replaced. It's going to be the associates, and
Yes.
is this a replacement for me? And trying to help them understand it's really not a replacement. It's an enhancement for you.
Yes.
It will help you become more productive. And that, I think, is the message to try to share with them, is that these tools are not here to replace you. They're here to help make your lives easier and, frankly, make you more productive.
Yeah. And I think I have this discussion with a couple of, you mentioned when I'm talking with my customers, I said that any implementation that we do or anyone do, the success has to do with user adoption.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not about how wonderful the CRM, the ERP, the analytics, the AI, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's, are you using or not?
Right.
That should be a yes or no kind of answer, right? Because I have discussion with a guy last year. They were using a BI tool. No, ours a different one. And I asked them, are you using it? Yeah, we are. Okay, you are using it. The CEO is using it. Sometimes. Are your branch manager using it? Sometimes.
Sure.
So we have a meeting, right, just to see where they were. And I asked them just openly, are you using it? I said, not really. Why? Because we're so busy. And these are giving information that we need and so forth. So that user adoption is so important for people to feel what you said, that is enhancing their job, that is really helping them out to do better or more easier their job. And I think that's the goal and the challenge at the same time that we all have, I would say, in the technological side for distributors, how we can make that happen, right? For every single distributor that is using our products.
Speaking of using the products and using AI and where it has some very practical application, what we've seen, I know that one of the areas that your company focuses on is using AI in the inventory management realm.
Yeah.
That's an interesting area because I know that, we've done replenishment theories and things, and we've had replenishment inside ERPs for a long time. I taught the Gordon Graham method for years and stuff, but there is that next level, that step forward. And I think that's really where the space that companies like yours are occupying, at least, and trying to teach. Could you tell me a little bit about how AI really would enhance that inventory management in distribution?
Sure. So actually, my first job in G Supply in 96, 97 was inventory controller, which I didn't like at all. Why? Because you get with the inventory, right? You are stuck with the inventory, right? And they're like, you have 2 turns, I want 3 turns.
Right.
As an inventory controller or manager, you are like, dude, but I don't buy things and I don't price things. How can I move this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of stuck in that. Anyway, so I would say, I think for distribution, inventory management, at the end of the day, is managing the demand side, like the demands part and the supply part, right? And demand planning, we can talk about all the different things that we can do in the ERP system, out of the ERP system, and so forth. At the end of the day, I would say is that today, with all the changes that we had in the supply chain, most of the algorithms that you can use in the ERP systems are not going to work because they are based only on historical data, and historical data before COVID and after COVID has plenty of noise.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. So you use anything, whatever is moving average, whatever min-max levels, all those things are going to be out of whack because the data that you're using has a lot of noise, and those algorithms were not designed for that kind of noise. So that's something, it is what it is. And that's where a lot of the issues will come in the demand planning side. What we do in the demand planning side is we're using something that is called neural networks. And neural networks is just methodology, right? Where you are telling the computer, you're giving them data about what happened in the past, and you are tagging that data. So you are selling, for example, let's say HVAC. So you are telling, okay, I have seasons. So I'm selling this specific product on these 4 months of the year because it's winter.
Right.
And I'm not selling this one because, it's summer. So we are tagging the data. Then we can tag the data and say, okay, all these transactions that happen are really anomalies. You won't be able to see these over and over. So what you are trying to teach the algorithm is all those anomalies or all those trends that you know as a human are happening, and the computer is learning from it and giving you an output on how that demand planning would look like. So our goal is to be able to be, I would say, anything from 60 to 80% accurate. That's all. That's as far as we can get. Honestly, we have been trying and crunching the numbers to get more than that. I would say it's impossible. It's just the benefits of getting 90% are not there, because that's just one piece of the equation, which is the demand planning side. Now, for the audience, what I found out a lot of people doing is using just the basic parameters in their ERP system and saying, the only way I can run my demand planning and supply plans with min maxes. That's all. And that's all that they know. And that's all that they use. And what I told them is, you are constraining yourself in one tool of many ones that you have. So the first takeaway from here is make sure that you understand what are the capabilities of your ERP system. Most of the
Very true.
modern ones, they have plenty of them. I mean, and typically, I would say a distributor is using maybe 10, 20% of the capabilities.
Totally agree
at the
with
most.
you. Oh, yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect.
Yeah.
In the supply planning side, it's about lead times, right? I mean, I talk with my customers about, the inventory management. Can you tell me the lead times? And we found more than, I would say, every single time is the way they are calculating lead times are pretty much tribal knowledge, right?
Sure.
You're saying this item, oh, I know this vendor, this item. I know this is 3 days lead time. How do you know that?
Because that's the way it's always been, man. Yeah.
Exactly. And I said, well, it's between 5 and 10. How do you know that? So when we go and do an analysis on the lead times that they have in the last 18, 12 months, 6 months, they can see how much variation you can have in those lead times and how do they play with that. The guys that are in the short lead times, I think that's easier to deal with in order to get just basic algorithm to get on the lead times. The guys that have 4, 6, 7 months.
Right. Or if they're importers or, they have stuff on the water.
Yeah.
Such a variable. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the other, I would say, opportunity that we have seen for AI, which is, and this is something that actually a customer told us at the beginning of this year. Said, Nelson, I know that I'm buying right. I know that I'm buying the right stuff at the right quantity. What I don't know is how that decision will pan out in 3, 6 months from now. That's what I don't know. So the question that I have for the audience is, how often are they reviewing, checking, or evaluating all those investments that they have made in the past, how they're turning into today, especially for those guys that they have a little bit of longer lead times, right? And typically they cannot give me an answer. Why? Because everything is sitting on the inventory.
They've made these bets and they don't know how the bets pan out.
Yeah, or they just made the bets and they don't have time to review them. So you place a PO, let's say, you run a business, Jason, so you know that you place a PO today and you're not following that PO every single day, every single time, right?
Right.
Because you move into the next thing and you just know what you have in inventory and what you're looking for in terms of parts. And if that part doesn't arrive, you do an expedite or it's a late order, right? But who is checking that order from beginning to end? There's few people checking that. And there are few companies that are looking at that. And this is the beauty about AI, which is you can train, the way I explain it, you can train a robot for each SKU. And you can tell that robot, this specific SKU 1, 2, 3, I want you to follow that SKU all the way from beginning to end every single day. I want you to know how many customers are buying. I want to know how you are selling that one. I know how this is being replenished. And I want you to let me know any alert of any discrepancy that is happening with this specific part. So you can have alerts in order to understand before things happen, what you can do with those ones.
Right. And any fluctuation. I mean, I think going back to your analogy about betting, it'd be fascinating to see what kind of a return on investment you're getting on every single bet that you made out there.
Yeah.
And today, people don't do that.
They don't do that. No.
They'll do averaging. They'll look at it more from a macro level. But, it's interesting just to look at, and that's where I think the power that you're talking about of these advances in technology can actually get down to a very finite look at, hey, how did my bet pan out? Did I win or lose? Or did I do better in October or did I do better in December? What was my...
Exactly. And the beauty about this, again, going back to AI, is about prescribing actions, right? It's giving you a heads up before that happen. And that's what I've been providing. I'll give you an example with a customer of ours. They have lead times. They are a big importer, anything from 4 to 9 months. Mm-hmm. So we are giving them alerts of things that change in the marketplace. So they can start changing, either pushing out POs, changing POs, or canceling POs, right? Before things are made with the manufacturer, changing those things so they can tailor or change the products that are coming at them. Because what I tell everyone is easier when you have a conversation with a manufacturer where they bought already the raw material and they are starting the first process to say, buddy, I am not going to use 80,000 of this. I'm just using 60,000. Is that okay with you? And I will give you another order just to offset the bookings. And they will take it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that the name of the game here is doing all those decisions on time or before those happen. And I can see, again, I don't have a crystal ball and I don't want to have one. But if 2023, it seems to be like a year with more volatility that we have because of different economic factors that we're seeing, this is going to happen with a lot of distributors, which is they will have inventory and open POs that they don't know what to do with. But they can work on that right now. I mean, we have this conversation in September, so it's time for them to start preparing on that, And when you talk with a distributor, I mean, if you ask them how much do you have in open POs, I don't think will have an answer for you, Jason.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Could they get the information? Sure. But they don't have a general sense. You're right.
Yeah, they don't have. And if I ask them, do you know how this will pan out? If these bears are going to pan out, how do you measure that? That's a very uncomfortable question to ask to an owner, to a purchasing guy. And that's a question that I ask to my customers, right? And you need to give, again, let me put another analogy. You and I and a lot of people in this podcast, they have 401ks. Mm-hmm. This is the same thing. You are making an investment on your retirement, right? You're asking the guy who is helping you out, how my investment is paying out. And if in September, if everything is in the stocks and unfortunately they choose the wrong ones, maybe you have a decline of 10, 15, 20% of your investment, right?
Looks like I'm working a little longer. Delaying retirement just a little longer.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Nelson, I really appreciate this. And frankly, you and I could go on and on different examples, but we do need to kind of wrap this up. How can someone reach out and get in touch with you and your company so that, maybe they can start down the trail of AI and some of the things you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, they can find me in LinkedIn. That would be a very easy one. My name is Nelson and my last name is Valderrama. So I will spell it for everyone. Is that what you want me to do?
You can, absolutely. But I'll put a link in the show notes and we'll make sure that people find you, in there. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my last name is quite long. But yeah, it would be an email, LinkedIn, or they can reach out to you, Jason, if they know you and, hey, I hear about this. Can you contact? You have my contact information. And again, I'm all for, serving and helping distributors. So you guys have any question about pricing or costing or profitability, inventory, whatever, and you just want to have a chat with me, I'm all for it. No strings attached.
Okay. Well, hey, Nelson, always a pleasure to catch up with you and really thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jason. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. distributionstalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.